And we're back. It says we're live.
Oh, we are. We're live.
Back again. Bearded Comic Bro is here. What are we drinking tonight?
I went with just a basic beer from Columbus, another Brewdog. I think I've had it on the show before, but it's just their Punk IPA. It's kind of what put them on the map. So
nice.
Yeah.
I'm doing an O'Hara's Irish Stout tonight.
Ooh.
And it's my Jameson Irish whiskey. So I'm doing a shot and a beer here.
Well, funny you should say that because I also have a little bourbon,
right? Double down here tonight.
So
how have you been, man? I feel like we haven't hung out in a little while.
Man, it's been a while because we did it probably like 3 weeks ago at least was our last one.
Yeah.
Then we had Mainframe 2 weekends ago, and I was on vacation, and it just I feel like it's been a while, so it's good to be back. It's good to be hanging out. Good to be talking movies again.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute. Although I have been playing around on that Letterboxd app that Perry put me onto. I made like a bunch of lists. I rated like 2,000 something movies. I went crazy over there.
I've only rated like the movies I watched this week. So what I'm trying to do is not rate off of memory and trying to watch because I've found, and you guys, if you're watching in the chat, will know there are movies I probably would have put up higher on my rankings. And then I watched them. I said, ooh, I need to remember that. So I'm trying to, because doing this whole process has made me think that of like, there are stuff that like, and I think things change anyways as the years go on. So you mature, you grow, or your tastes differ. So.
Right. No, I do think that I was talking with a couple of people, including you, about movies that have aged well or not aged well. And certain filmmakers maybe have films that age differently than others, and actors' performances. And we will definitely get into a little bit of that tonight, I have a feeling.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I'm more worried about like having people follow me on Letterboxd now. Than YouTube. I'm like, I got 3 people following me now on my movie app.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I wanted to rate as many as I could, and then later I think I can go. Like I went back today and I downgraded a few 5s to 4.5. I was like, no, maybe that one was better. I also didn't understand the app at first. I didn't understand you could do half marks.
Yeah,
everything I did was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars, and then later I'm like, oh, I noticed my graph wasn't like a bell curve like other people's. It was like.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I got to say hello to the chat real quick.
Absolutely.
Ruben Guzman, my homie, was here. Cowabunga to you too, brother. Coach Vic, I talked to a bunch about movies and sports movies in particular. This man has definitely been just a great discussion leader and might be high on our list of people we need to think about inviting. And we'll talk a little bit about our 2 later shows that we got coming up in this category.
Yeah, because some people in the chat are already getting on our case about invites. So hold your horses, gang.
It's coming. It's happening. Sharon, Life with 2 YouTubers, I believe her stream is still going because I was on there and then I had to leave, but I don't know. But thank you for being here.
That's right.
I said hello, gag, but I meant gang. I haven't been drinking. I just started. There's the guy, Bearded Comic Bro. His link is in the description for this video. And I want to say super close to 300 subscribers.
Yeah, I think I'm like I got a little bump from the boys today at 2 Brothers tonight. So I think I'm pretty close, like 6 away from 300. So
let's make this happen, people. If you haven't subscribed to Greg at the Bearded Comic Bro, you're missing out, firstly, on first-rate content. The stuff you're doing with your wife, the reviews. I mean, he's dropping content a ton, and you're missing it. Secondly, he's just an awesome guy. So he, deserves your subscription.
That's right.
And we got Jeffrey Gag. Yeah.
Calling out.
Nice to see you. Ooh, hot take from Chaos and Comics. Caddyshack 2 is better than Caddyshack. No. You might as well say Ghostbusters 2 is better than Ghostbusters. Just get out of here with this talk. You're talking crazy. Hello, Jeff Comic 813. He knows that comment was batshit crazy. Beta Ray Jim says, I'm confused. Why can't I donate to this channel? Beta Ray Jim, you are awesome. And I appreciate the kindness. And there are many myriad reasons why I haven't monetized at this point. But I just found out that it's possible that my pay will get cut significantly at work In which case, maybe I do monetize my channel just to try to make the difference up. But more to think on that in the future. I've just chosen not to because I didn't want this to feel like something where, like a Patreon or something where I felt obligated to make content. I wanted this to be about doing something fun and having fun with my friends and you guys in the chat as well, like that. I didn't want to feel obligated to do this because I didn't want it to feel like a job. But maybe I need to consider alternatives. And no invite yet. Geek Aficionado. Jimmy's ready for this, so you are definitely on the list, my brother. This is their Love Fest Geek. Oh, is it? Well, hey, I'll tell you right now. This guy knows his movies, and I did one live stream without him, and then realized, what am I doing? I need this guy. I'm about to log 8 hours of streaming today. Let's see. I think this is my 4th stream today.
Yeah, I was gonna say you had your show this morning, and then I watched you on
Comic Chop.
Yep, Comic Chop. Yep, which was a great. They're putting out some great stuff too. So.
And then I was on with Sharon for a little bit, and I jumped out of there quickly so I could eat. And then, yeah, lots of stuff going on here for sure. Big O says, "What's good, crew?" You know what? A little bit of drinks and movies is what's good tonight. YouTube is 90. Hello, Chad. He's been doing fun little offlines every once in a while, and it's like he's watching YouTube with YouTubers. So he's like sitting backstage watching, somebody's show. It's hilarious. He might be doing it right now. He might be watching this show with like Hialeah Comic Bro and Steve Whiting and just sitting around. It's hilarious. Tin Cup is number 1. See, Geek Aficionado, he's reading the scroll across the bottom that reminds you this is our 2nd show about sports movies. We did one on baseball, Olympics, boxing, kids, sports, and soccer. And if you missed that one, you can click on the playlist and go over and find that one. Tonight, though, is football, hockey, and golf. And Tin Cup is definitely worth mentioning in those categories.
Absolutely.
Beta Ray Jim says Caddyshack 2 is better than Caddyshack. Wow. This is the craziest hot take, and it's happened twice in one night.
Well, let me just tell you guys this. If that is your honest to God opinion, this show is not for you. I'm gonna just throw that out there right now. I don't want you guys to leave the stream. I want you guys to hang out with us, chat with us. But if you honestly think Caddyshack 2 is better than Caddyshack, you're probably not gonna come on the show.
However, when we did our first stream, we had several moments of discussing how Rocky 2 has a significant advantage in some ways to Rocky 1, and Mighty Ducks 2 has some significant advantages to Mighty Ducks 1. I just don't know that Caddyshack qualifies. Hello to Chris of I Got Issues. Let's see here. But I want to donate. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that, Beta Ray Jim. I guess I could give you my PayPal, but that seems very strange. Goofy Movie is the greatest fishing movie of all time. I don't know. What about what is it? The River Runs Through It.
The Great Outdoors.
River Runs Through It with that's Robert Redford's masterpiece.
Oh, what's the one whitewater rafting? That's what I was thinking with Kevin Bacon.
River Wild.
Okay, I knew it was a river. Yeah.
But there's a little bit of fishing in there. Yeah, a little bit of fishing.
But it was more whitewater rafting, I think, for that one.
Ghostbusters 2 is good though. Caddyshack 2 not so much. No, I agree. Sure. Hello, Todd Christian. Sorry to skip over you. Funk Comics 814. I love it. I love the icon, too. That's phenomenal. Let's see here. Happy Gilmore. We are going to discuss some Adam Sandler. You can pretty much guarantee you that. Ghostbusters 2 has Ernie Hudson. So does Ghostbusters 1, though. Right?
But does it really?
Fair point. Yeah, that's a fair point.
I would say that's probably what Coach Vic is hitting at. Because
you need to hop on one of my off airs. You guys are hilarious. I know this is unpopular, but the court scene alone in Ghostbusters 2 is better than anything in the first. Wow. This chat is hot take central right now. I can just tell you right now. Grease 2 is better than Grease 1. Finally, the first logical one I've heard, Comics Misexplained. You could definitely convince me of this argument. I go back and forth between the two, so I'm right there with you. Rocky 4 is the best Rocky. Look, you guys. Sharknado 2. Jeffrey's getting in there. Grease 2 was better. You guys are hilarious. John, critiquing sports ball? Elseworlds YouTube night. I tell you, the joke I made the first night was I'm not a big fan of watching sports. I'll play certain sports. I don't like watching them, but I do love a good sports movie. TMNT is better than TMNT. Sorry, 2 is better than 1. I rewatched TMNT 1. That's talk about a movie that did not necessarily hold up. Agreed, Chaos. Oh my gosh. Sling Blade is a fishing movie. You guys are hilarious.
Talk about a movie that
hyper-sanctioned
kids movie.
What's that?
Talk about a movie that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that's a kids movie that shouldn't be quote unquote a kids movie. Like he nonchalantly is like, oh, whoops, let me just murder somebody.
Yep.
Punch a garbage truck. But hey.
They go fishing in Jaws. You're gonna count that one? There you go. Finding Dory, never seen it. You guys are hilarious. Rush Hour 2. Climbing movies where the guy has to cut his own. Oh, yeah, 127 hours. Good movie. Yeah. Which does bring us to a little discussion of the upcoming shows. A lot of you are mentioning, is it a sports movie? We will, next Saturday, be doing our final solo show with the two of us on sports movies. Next week is basketball, and is it even a sport? Like a miscellaneous sports category that Greg is already promising will be full of fight movies like you would not believe. Non-boxing, because we had boxing in part 1. We hope after that, in 2 weeks from tonight, to have a live stream chat with a bunch of you from the chat, just sort of tearing it up, talking about sports movies and just kind of free form bipping around through great sports talk. Maybe your favorite sports movies, why this one is better than that one, why a certain sport like baseball seems to have plentiful great films, whereas other sports might not. Lots of fun talk.
So there's opportunities. And then we've got some plans for future that we'll let you guys know down the road that we'll have guests on a lot more. So, But we got to this is only our, fourth show. This will be our 4th show.
Yeah, our 2nd sports one, 4th one overall, a fifth even with this theme of drinks and movies. And I got to say, as usual, Greg has carried the load on the slideshow and how good it looks. So kudos on that. Hilarious discussions of what is a sports movie or not a sports movie going on right now. We will definitely discuss some of those sports next weekend. But tonight it's all about pigskin, football, hockey, that's ice hockey, and then golf. Those are our 3 sports for tonight. We're going to be talking a ton of these games here, and let's bring in the slideshow. Woo! Man, look at that image. You did a great job with that. I love everything. I mean, just it looks like a sport. The logo is phenomenal. Love the font. All right. So
I got to put my weight around here somewhere.
We're going to start you guys off with hockey. I will say, in general, tough category to find quality movies. What do you think?
Yeah. Honestly, this to me, not to the extent that I struggle with soccer.
Right.
But it was tougher. And that's not to say that there aren't good hockey movies. It just is probably some that might have crept in our top picks wouldn't have made it if there were more to choose from, like a baseball or a football or
right.
For me.
And Cutting Edge did come up in Olympic films, but we did make a hard cut in Olympic films so that we would have more hockey films. If you saw the first episode, you know what we're talking about. A lot of people discussing Mighty Ducks and how great it is, and we gave a lot of love to Mighty Ducks last time in the kids sports section.
We put the first 2
in
our kids sports section. Like that's how much love we gave to them. So, spoiler alert, if you want Mighty Ducks love, watch episode 1 of our show.
We tried to get away from it. I do love, though, my favorite part of this graphic is the Jean-Claude Van Damme sudden death in the corner there as a hockey movie, because it takes place in a hockey dome where he's the security guard. It's Die Hard in a hockey stadium. It's amazing.
And terror goes into overtime. Like, I mean, come on. It's so good.
I agree. Absolutely. And hilarious that you included it. I love it. It's like, it would be like putting The Last Boy Scout on a football poster.
Which I almost did, because I know someone in the chat was going to be like, is Last Boy Scout a football movie?
You know somebody is. Absolutely. So let's take a look at some good hockey movies that we chose. Let's start with the first one up here. Woo-woo!
Ooh, Slapshot.
What do you think of Slapshot?
So this is going to be my hot take for the night. I feel like maybe not, but maybe for some of the older heads here. I did not love it as much as I thought I would, and as much as I remembered. I get the appeal of the Hanson brothers. Paul Newman doesn't do it for me in this movie as much as I thought he would. We were texting
the fur coat or the leather suit.
No. Paul Newman's attire does it for me. Just Paul Newman, like it felt, we were texting backstage. I kind of was like watching because we both kind of watched Slapshot, I think, at the same time. And I remember texting like, Paul Newman's kind of a D-bag in this show.
He is absolutely a douchebag, yeah.
So that's one that for me, and I know they made Slapshot 2, and which I didn't even give it a chance because it starred Stephen Baldwin, I think.
Yeah.
I think they made another one with that focused on the Hanson brothers later. But this was one that probably, if there were more to choose from, it would not have made the cut for me, which I feel like there hasn't been a lot of hockey movies. And so that's why for people that like, I think Slapshot kind of forces it into like, oh, it's a great hockey movie because it really for the longest time was one of the only ones out there.
By default. Yeah.
So it's kind of like what I said last week with like Vision Quest. Like it's one of the few wrestling movies that was out there at the time growing up. So if you watch it, it's not a great movie, but if you talk to a wrestler, they're like, that's my favorite movie. And I feel like that's the same with Slapshot.
That's fair. I could definitely see that being the response for a lot of people. So for me, it's funny. I had the opposite issue because I had never seen Slapshot before. This was my first time watching it. I got it from my library and busted this out. I was like, hey, it's a hockey movie with Paul Newman. George Roy Hill directed this. Like I was like, I love George. I mean, Sting. Come on,
right?
Butch Cassidy. Like, let's do this. Let's do this. Some of the best Paul Newman movies ever. Paul Newman's outfits in this are horrible. My wife even came in a couple times like, why does he keep wearing high heels? Like his shoes legitimately have a platform on the back. Like legit. Like look closely, people. This is the worst 70s costumes you'll ever. And at one point he wears a full leather suit. I mean, leather pants and a leather jacket, like it's a suit. Then he's going to go to like a business meeting.
Business casual though.
Well, absolutely, because you'd sweat balls in that.
Let me ask you this. Well, maybe chat can help us out here because I feel like we probably have some hockey fans in the chat.
Right.
They don't wear helmets. I think like two people do in the movie. Is that like, was that because they didn't do that in like the 70s?
Yeah, it's based on the era. Yeah.
Okay.
Like a football player wearing the leather hat or whatever.
I just didn't know if it was the era or if it was like Paul Newman's like, no, I want you to see my face, and then it was going to be odd if Paul Newman.
No, I think it's legit the era of hockey, and maybe somebody could tell me for sure. But that's how I remember hockey. Like only the goalie wore gear on their head. Sorry, Kate, says Damez. Kate got in trouble. Paul Newman's salad dressings are the best salad dressings. Changed my mind. Yeah, so for me, like I was definitely distracted by the 70s costumes. Paul Newman's fur-lined coat. I mean, he was like Cruella de Villing it. But I will also say, like, it's legitimately funny in several sequences. I really thought that the on-ice drama and the off-ice, like, behind the scenes, like, business side stuff was very interesting.
Yeah.
It is definitely aged, and there are several things besides costumes, like the fact that so I mean, I guess this will come up in sports a bunch. I grew up in a town with a large homosexual population. It was just normal, and the F word for a gay person was like legitimately offensive, like even when I was a kid. Now, it didn't mean people don't say it. It's kind of part of sports. When I was growing up, you know, you'd be playing a game and you'd call somebody the F word for a gay person. And it was like, but for me, it's shocking how many of these 70s and 80s movies include those references.
Yeah.
And it happens a ton in this, and it happens a ton in like The Longest Yard with Burt Reynolds.
Yeah. And I think I think that's, we kind of were talking off air on that too. Like, what that bothers me more so, like, because it's almost like a staple of like, it's a snapshot of where we were in history.
Right.
But it's not like, is not looking at it from a historical standpoint. Like if you were to watch something like, you know, Glory or something where you're putting in some of that aspect because they want you to know what this is like shot in that time frame where it's like, this is just socially acceptable. And it was like, and it kind of like, oh yeah, Jeffrey's bringing it up right there. Tom Brenneman, who's a radio announcer for the Cincinnati Reds, which is my team. You know, that happened this week while we're watching that, you know, where he says the slur like that. And it's, yeah, like it kind of like, it's hard to like chuck it off like, ha ha ha, like,
yeah. Well, you know, I was discussing offline with Chad 90 Miles from Comics how when I was in college or maybe late in high school, I saw Alec Baldwin and Kim Basinger in the remake of The Getaway, which is like a bank heist movie. And at one point, Baldwin finds out his wife had cheated on him with James Woods in order to get him out of jail. And when he finds out, he confronts her, and she's hurt by the fact that she used her tools to get him out of jail. So she slaps him like 4 or 5 times. And I was like, wow, that was kind of intense. And then later I went and watched the original because I had never seen the original film, which was Ali McGraw and Steve McQueen. And in the original film, the same sequence happens. He confronts his wife, Ali McGraw, with sleeping with the bad guy. And then he beats her. He legitimately slaps her 5, 10 times. Like just beats the snot out of Ali McGraw. And for me, that was a lesson in like evolution. Now I can appreciate the original Getaway as like, it captured a moment in time.
Yeah.
But that scene is not easy to watch. No. And that scene is like, wow. Like that was acceptable. And I was supposed to cheer for Steve McQueen and he legitimately beat her.
Right.
And now I'm not saying that that Slapshot should be held to all the same standards or that movies can't be looked at as time capsules in some way, but it does in some ways affect enjoyment. I guess
and I think too, and like you said, you can't take it away from what that you know, because there was where we were in that time frame, but there is something of both of us. I feel like I watched Slapshot maybe on TV as a kid. And so some of that stuff would have been edited out anyways. And because I'm talking like not cable, I'm talking like old school TV.
Right.
And so I think for us that are watching it for a first time or rewatching it for like the second time, we don't have that nostalgia when you watch it. So when you hear that it's things like that, it kind of makes it a little harder. Yeah.
Now I will say, despite all of that, I still was willing to say it's one of the better hockey movies that I've seen. Again, I like the drama of the story. I think there are several moments that had me laughing. Like comedy is a hard thing to withstand time. And I was laughing a ton, especially like you're saying, the issues of goon, right? The idea of like players evolving to bringing fighting into the sport more. Yeah. And to have that sort of captured on film, I thought was very enjoyable, and I enjoyed it a bunch. I think it has aged a ton, and not necessarily in the best way, which means it's near the bottom of my top hockey picks, but still not worth throwing out.
Well, and that's where I said it would have been one of those that it needed. If there were more to choose from, it might not have made my list.
There's a ton of craziness going on in the chat.
Is blown.
They're talking about racing movies, Cannonball Run and Ricky Bobby and NASCAR films. And we were discussing offline about like, is that a sport? Is there athleticism involved? I know there's quick reflexes and hand-eye coordination. So it will definitely be something that is discussed a ton next week in our miscellaneous category, because I finally watched Ford versus Ferrari, which kind of made me want to think about some of these things.
Right.
But that was my like I really enjoyed Ford versus Ferrari, but in my head I was thinking, is it like a sports film the same way that Slapshot or some of the football films we might mention later are sports films?
Right.
You know, The Cannonball Run record was smashed. I don't know what this is about. Able to get through big cities faster. Oh, they're arguing about the actual Cannonball Run. Gotcha. And I love Brian K. Vaughan. I like that you're talking about it. And troubling language. And yeah, I mean, you talk about Quentin Tarantino. He uses a ton of troubling language in his films. But I want to say it's used with knowledge of what the words mean versus Slapshot, which used the word thinking that it was a funny way to describe a player who's not athletic or not good.
Right.
You're gay because you can't play hockey, or you're gay because you can't play football. Right. In which case it's derogatory and it's done to be funny. Like, because in the 70s, it was funny to call somebody an F word for a gay person.
I mean, Chaos called it out in the chat, so I'm going to just bring it up. So if you haven't seen Slapshot, spoiler alert if you really care. I mean, the guy does get naked at the end of the movie.
Well, they all hang their
that's
butt
how they
out
end
the
the
window,
game.
too. Racing is 100% a sport. First you shake it, then you bake it. There he is.
Shake and bake.
It's an interesting debate, because the physicality is obviously very different. But I mean, you could argue the same thing about bowling, right? You could argue the same thing about golf. I know plenty of people that feel like golf is not a sport. I know plenty of people that would stand there and tell you golf is not a sport.
I mean,
it's all very entertaining to debate.
I'll say bowling is a sport just so we can call Kingpin next week. So
right, I love that movie. Great movie. All right, let's look at our next hockey movie. I saw this in college. It's a really underrated hockey movie and sports movie in general. When I was, and I try not to mention the film school thing, but when I was in film school, the director of this movie brought it. He was an alumni of my film school, and he brought it to show at school. And he brought it to my film class, and we all got to come and watch it. And he talked a little bit afterwards about the making of the movie. And I just really appreciated the northern exposure sort of quality of the movie, where you're getting to know this small town and you're getting to know all the little people in the town and how this Saturday night hockey game they always play means so much to people that have so little in some ways.
Yeah, it's. I mean, even in the poster, it says it's a Rocky of hockey, which I've never said that out loud, which sounds
the rhyming, right? Yeah.
I would say it's more of the Friday Night Lights of hockey. And what I mean by that is the aspect of Friday Night Lights is that small town feel. You feel like you get to know the community really well in this, and that is something that they do a very good job of in this movie, is portraying all the different personalities of the town. And you don't have to spend a lot of time to feel like you know and understand the people of the town pretty quick.
Right. It was one of the first times I remember really seeing Russell Crowe as well. And Russell Crowe's kind of I had seen him in Virtuosity and this, I think, were really the early movies.
Virtuosity, so good.
We talked about that with Denzel, right?
It is, because this is what, 1999, or is it early 2000?
It was later 90s, like mid-late 90s.
So it was I feel like it was kind of right when Russell Crowe was doing your LA Confidential. You're kind of not, he wasn't Gladiator yet.
No, it was definitely before Gladiator. It was 2000. I love this comment from Issues, even though it covers Greg's face. Nothing stands the test of time because standards and mentalities change. Half the stuff made in comedy in the 70s and 80s, even 90s, cannot exist in the modern world. And I do agree with that in a big way.
Right.
So it becomes tricky. But rewatching things, you can definitely be affected by your evolution, like Greg was saying, how you view a movie when you're young versus when you're older. I think your perspective will change, and then therefore your enjoyment of a movie might change.
Right.
Racing is a competitive science. I love this discussion in the chat. A sport needs defense. I love that concept. That's very interesting. That's horse racing for you uneducated peasants, dressage, right? Thanks for clarifying, says Jeffrey. We discussed cool running.
I thought dressage was not horse racing. I thought it was
It's horse jumping.
Okay, I thought it was like a showmanship class. More.
It is. It's it's how they run and then they jump. Yeah.
So
yeah, we discussed Cool Runnings last week in our Olympics, and I will say, the more I've researched Cool Runnings, the more I regret picking it, because I don't want to. I know that some people were very upset when I mentioned this when I was doing one of my runs on the hill. Disney raped the story of the Jamaican bobsled team. There was no coach who was anything like John Candy. That is a complete fabrication. The four bobsledders, all fabricated. They were all completely different people in real life. The movie Cool Runnings, as hilarious and enjoyable as it is basically a fabrication up to the point when they're actually bobsledding. The bobsledding runs are real, but even those they put in a different order. They happened in a different sequence.
Yeah.
That movie got a little ruined for me, and I'll tell you, Eddie the Eagle moved up in my enjoyment because of how truth to fact Eddie Eagle is versus how fake and Disneyfied Cool Runnings is.
So I'm gonna just tell you, John, if you're watching sports movies moving forward, even with this stream going on, if you don't want it to get ruined, don't look up what's real and not real, because it might affect your opinion on stuff like Rudy's not as much, but remember the Titans a little bit and things like that. So I'm just saying,
I agree. No, I agree. It's a hard line. It's a hard line where truth in a true sports story comes in. But I will say, remember the Titans, and we'll get to that in sports, but in the football section, at least has more truth at its core than, I mean, honestly, Cool Runnings is basically like they wrote a sports movie and then slapped like history on it at the end.
I mean, that's what Disney does, though, to make good sports movies.
I agree. The Ringer. Ooh, man, you guys know your sports movies. I love this chat. You're on fire. We should keep rolling through here. Let's get to our last. Yeah.
Speaking of Disney movies.
So we pulled this from Olympics, knowing that we needed more hockey movies. And to be honest, for me, this is the greatest hockey movie I've ever seen. I don't know your feelings on The Miracle.
So my feelings on Miracle are that this is one that I watch a lot. I'm just be honest with you right up front. So a lot for me is probably like once a year. So I just clarify that. But that's a lot for me. This is one of those times where it's like, for me, when I'm on social media and I click on one of those like engagement videos, or I click on a video where it's a vet coming home to surprise their loved ones, I'm like, I know what's going to happen. I know exactly what's going to happen in this, and I still get in the feels. Like that's what Miracle does for me. I know exactly what's going to happen. And I've seen it so many times, and I'm still like, and that's where I think Disney does really well. And we'll talk about this. And I think where it sets it up a lot better than some others, is that Miracle for me, it taps on the feels the entire movie. Like there are those moments where it's like, again, like, where he's blowing the whistle in the arena after they just played the game, and again. Like it's so good. And pause real quick, because I do want to mention this. Mighty Ducks would have made it into my hockey list if we hadn't put it in the kids' sports movies. So yes, we tried
and Mighty Ducks 2. We brought up both of those films. I think they both really deserved a spot.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Miracle for me, I thought it's very well done. I love it. So,
John giving it away in the chat. Mighty Ducks is on. Yeah, sorry. Thank you for the support that everybody keeping us. I mean, I know Kavi did that all week last time. Everybody was saying, "Hey, where's Rudy?" And we were like, "No, football is next time."
So that's why we tried to make help you guys out.
So much appreciated. Yeah, Goon. Let's talk a little bit about. I mean, also I guess I could say about Miracle. Loved Miracle. I think it's one of the best of the Disney sports movies, and they've made a ton of them. And I own 3 of them. I own The Rookie, which we talked about last time, Miracle, and Remember the Titans. They're just great movies, taking a true story, adding a little Disney magic, and really boosting the drama. Kurt Russell, perfect. He's just absolutely great. The fact that they got not great actors, but great hockey players to play the play. These kids knew how to play hockey. They were not just making this up. They went with hockey before talent of acting, which I think improves the on ice sequences in a big way. Kind of like League of Their Own with the backup supporting actors or actresses. They went with ladies who knew how to play baseball, ladies who could throw a ball, field the ball, and swing a bat. Right? It makes a huge difference on screen. You don't pay me for nothing, John. Hey, Beta Ray Jim wants to pay me, and I can't figure out how to help him out with that. So I'm still trying to figure it out. So if Jim wants to pay Kavi, then we can just pass the money from hand to hand. Youngblood, I've never even heard of as a hockey movie. So apparently, I've got something to add in my watching list.
And that's what we did say. Like, we like, one of the things that we like about doing this is there's so many movies out there that we just don't have time to properly. And if it's going to make our list, chances are one of us has seen it, and chances are both of us have.
Right.
We're not just going to put out a list because ESPN says that it is. So if there are movies that we've missed, let us know, because we'll add it to our list. We did it last week with some. Like the Shylon Soccer or whatever is on my list. Might not get to it for a while, but it's on my list.
Well, what was the one you told me about? Was Goal, I think, or something?
Yeah, Goal. Yep.
I gotta watch that. Daymare's brought up the idea of Goon, and I know you wanted to talk a little bit about Goon.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. So, Goon was one I watched, and then I actually started to watch the second one and then I realized I was like, I didn't have time, so I stopped because I knew it wasn't going to make my list.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it, but I mean, I don't. For me, even Slapshot with its like aged qualities was a superior film. If we were going to do a top 4, the fourth would be Goon.
Yep, Goon would have been my fourth. Yep,
yeah,
with the stipulation that Mighty Ducks is in the kids' movies. For all you guys who are about to jump in and be like, what about?
With Mighty Ducks would be in the kids' films, and then here you go. Here's our threesome. And if you haven't seen these, good hockey movies, good stuff to check out. And I think you've added a little something here.
I did. I added my sentimental pick. I mean, come on. Michael Scarn does just a brilliant job in this movie.
He shoots, he scores.
And if you don't know the Scarn, how to do the Scarn, everyone does. So, and Goldface.
I saw this slide.
I should have got my Goldface popping. I didn't bring it in. I should have.
It's so good. It's such a good call. Yeah, right up there with sudden death. Really great.
Which probably is. It's funny because it's where they probably got the idea. But hey,
right? Exactly. All right, and maybe let's move on to some golf movies. So I'm gonna say this is where I'm gonna tear Disney up a little bit, because I spent time watching The Greatest Game Ever Played with Shia. That movie sucks. And I'm sorry for anybody that loves that movie with Shia LaBeouf, The Greatest Game Ever Played. I love Bill Paxton. He did not do a good job directing that movie. That movie is a mess and has no emotional impact at all and is devoid of any feeling. I was shocked by what a muddled, pathetic mess The Greatest Game. It might have been the worst sports movie I've been forced to watch so far.
So, is it make your list?
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, so I mean, I'd probably pick Who's Your Caddy before that, which, by the way, made me laugh more than anything when I looked at this slide, was Who's Your Caddy. Definitely hilarious.
Well, I'm before we jump on, Comic Smith explained, he says Shia sucks in everything. I'm not saying he's great, but goodness gracious, I love Peanut Butter Falcon. And
I have not seen that.
It's on Amazon. Because you know what, John? Watch it this week, because it could be is it a sports movie? It could make is it a sports movie? So Peanut Butter Falcon, I think I'm almost positive it's streaming on Amazon Prime for free if you guys have that. I think it's a fantastic movie.
I love this comment. I'd rather watch Happy Gilmore 5 times than than most of these flicks up there. I love it. Hilarious.
So
I did not see Comics Misexplained's comment, but maybe it hasn't popped up in the StreamYard yet.
It was there. It was right around. It was right before issues. I got issues, so it's showing up on YouTube, not on your StreamYard. Then.
Oh, maybe
I don't have the power. I don't have the power that you have.
That's all right. That's all good. All right, so let's talk about the ones that we did agree upon, the ones we did think were the 3 best golf movies. Sorry for those of you telling us Caddyshack 2 is better than Caddyshack 1, but come on, we're crazy. This movie is a hilarious just mess. There's no plot here. There's no point. It's just let's put some of the funniest people from this era together on film and try to splice together hilarity. And it works way better than it should.
It really does. I mean, Bill Murray alone, just on like his because all his interaction, except for like the end scene where he's with Chevy, it's basically just him by himself interacting, and it's entertaining as all get out.
Oh my God.
Just shows you the quality of comedic acting that he has.
Yeah. I mean, he is so quotable in this movie, right? If I kill all the golfers, they'll lock me up and throw away the key. Like, there are so many little moments of just like genius, and it's absurd. There's no point to his character. There's no reason why he should even be in this movie, but it all just slowly builds to him winning the game for the hero at the end because he blows the course up. Like it's just hilarity, and I absolutely think this is just one of the funniest movies I've ever seen.
And what's funny is they're all, at least the main 3, their comedy styles are all different.
You guys are hilarious. I did remember hearing something where the director was near the end.
They're talking about Ready Player One.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
It was just perfectly timed with this discussion of Caddyshack, so I was like, oh my God.
Okay.
The director realized at the end of the movie that they had 2 of the biggest stars from SNL on the same movie, and they never had a scene together. So they invented this scene with Chevy and Bill just so that they would have a scene together somewhere in the movie. They had nothing written, and the actors just basically improv'd a scene that is one of the funniest moments in the movie. It's
great, and it's funny that we're talking Caddyshack, and look who joined the stream. Our boy Rod the Rican, because we were just on a stream last night, and he was talking about his time where he actually was on the golf course where they shot the movie and stuff. So go watch Old Wolf's channel if you want to hear Rod talk about Caddyshack.
Now I'm laughing about a Caddyshack book, says Comics Misexplained, right?
I just wanted to make sure that John didn't think there was a Caddyshack book.
I did not think there was a Caddyshack book. I just thought it was hilarious that all of the StreamYard comments are so much later than the actual chat that's what came up while we were talking Caddyshack. Yeah, so I mean, this movie is phenomenal. There's just joke after joke after hot lady after. I mean, it's just all very entertaining and great movie.
Yeah, fantastic.
And talk about a movie that even though it's inappropriate in many big ways, stands the test of time.
Yep.
This movie was made near to the same time that we're talking about the slap shots and the longest yards, but this movie for me has not aged in the same way.
No, because Rodney's outfits, as ridiculous as they are, that's why he's wearing them.
Right.
So,
right.
Where Paul Newman just thought he looked good.
Right. All right. Let's go on to the next one we got. Tin Cup. I will say, and I think I mentioned it last time when we were talking baseball movies and Bull Durham, I am a huge Ron Shelton fan. And for those that don't know who he is a writer, director, and he's made a ton of sports movies. I want to say he's probably made more sports movies than any other director and writer in history. He's made Bull Durham. He's made Tin Cup. He's made White Men Can't Jump. He's made Play It to the Bone. he has made a ton of sports movies, a variety of different sports, and just has a real understanding. Why? Because he played minor league baseball and was a struggling, unsuccessful athlete. And he generally made movies. One of the things I love about his movies are he made movies about people who lose. He made movies about losers. They're not about the big team winning the big game. His movies are about struggling athletes learning lessons and losing a lot of the big games, including this one, which is easily the biggest meltdown in any sports movie you're going to see. And I know that sequence does bother you a little bit. I'm going to let you talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. I enjoy Tin Cup. That sequence almost ruins it for me because I feel like as an athlete, no athlete would do what he was doing.
Right.
And so it takes away a little bit of the realism for me, and as someone, like you said, like he is an athlete, like, so he understands that it's the struggles of an athlete. Maybe I'm saying 9 out of 10 athletes would not have done what he did there.
Absolutely.
And it's infuriating to me as a golf fan. But that's why. Like, I think it's because I actually am one of those guys who sits and watches golf. Like, I enjoy golf. I like to play it. I'm not good, but I'm like, no one would do that. And so,
can I sell you on that scene?
Sell me, win me over. I don't think you will.
So here's how I would sell you. I agree. 9 out of 10 athletes would never do that. In fact, I would even go as far to say 99 out of 100.
Yeah.
But that's the whole point of this movie is he is not a professional athlete. He's an epic failure as an athlete. This guy has none of the mental skills. He is a mental screw up. He is a mental failure. He has so many mental blocks. There's no way he can back down from this. It's like the Marty McFly, you're a chicken, and I gotta apparently fight everybody who says I'm a chicken thing. Do you know what I mean? He is that pig-headed. He is that foolhardy that for me, the whole point of the movie is a guy trying to deal with his innermost self, and his innermost self is a clusterfuck.
Yeah. I get what you're saying, and I see Beta Ray. And look who joined the chat there, John.
Hey, my dad. Hey, Dad. We're talking about one of your. My dad's a big Kevin Costner fan.
Yeah, and like that's the thing. I love the movie, like I do, and like I think it's so well done. And Kevin Costner is great. That scene bothers me. So I know Beta Ray's trying to sell me on it too. I think it's a hang up for me. So, so I get where you guys are coming from, but I'm coming from it as a mindset of, I don't know.
Well, you're one of the other 99. You're one of the other guys who would be like, I'm not going to blow this. I'm going to play it smart so that I can win.
Yeah. And I get, and then I get it. That's why he's a mess up. That's why Jeffrey said he's not a pro. Like, that's why he's not a pro. That's just for me, where the failure of a sports movie doesn't do it for me, where there are some other ones of like, where, like Rocky, where they tie, or like that does more for me than like, oh, he's actually going to beat Apollo Creed. Like, well,
and earlier today, I was talking about the suspension of disbelief, the idea that a movie or a book or whatever can only go so far before that scale tips or the suspension snaps. And it's possible for you. You're saying this is such an unrealistic moment. It strains credibility.
Right. Well, I mean, it's where like we didn't even talk about. We're talking about movies, and we spoil some stuff, guys. If you haven't seen it, like Mystery Alaska, if they would have beat the New York Rangers, I feel like I would not have liked the movie as much, because it's like, come on, they're not gonna like.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you're right. It's where you are going into with the disbelief. Like, are you there or not? And
yeah, I mean, it's the same with Bull Durham. I think if they had won a lot of the big games at the end of Bull Durham, it would have drawn off the power of the film.
Right.
And what's powerful in Bull Durham is they lose the big game, and then Nuke gets to make it to the majors.
Right.
And Crash Davis does get to hit his home run record, but nobody cares and nobody notices. And those are the true to sport moments. And for you, this is not a true to sport moment in the same way.
And also I watched this as a kid. And so there is something with this too. I watched this with a kid, and my dad is a 10 times more avid golfer than I am. And he hates it because of that part too. So I know mentally for me, there is that correlation of, I watched this with my dad. My dad's like, no one would do this. And it was drilled into me as a kid that I'm like, all right.
Now, I will say I've watched this movie probably every other year. I see this movie. And for me, the way this movie works is the acting. I think Russo's really great. Costner's great. Cheech Marin. Cheech Marin is hilarious in this. People have mentioned Don Johnson, really great. I think the acting really plays this movie well, and the tone is super consistent as far as just being silly versus, I think, the drama may be more heavy in White Men Can't Jump or in Bull Durham, or even Play It to the Bone.
Yep.
Some guys just want to make the big shot, says my dad. And he's a big golfer, big sports fanatic as well. So thanks for coming by, Dad. So let's do one last golf movie that we agreed upon as great golf. And this has come up in the chat a bunch because we were talking hockey earlier, but we are in golf now. And you might think you're a hockey player, Happy Gilmore, but you're wrong. And how do you know? Because Julie Bowen tells you that you're not. You're a golfer. And this is a golf movie. It's not a hockey movie.
And what's so great is the way we ordered this makes me look like a complete clown, because I'm sitting there like tin cup, like, listen, this would never happen in golf. Like, no one would do this. No. And then I'm like, but Happy Gilmore, it's fantastic. But I think that's what it goes into with those states of like, where are you going in? You're going into Happy Gilmore knowing what you're going to get, or like what you're expecting. I'm not going into Happy Gilmore and thinking I'm going to get Miracle.
Right. But it's the suspension of disbelief, right? The disbelief in a movie like Tin Cup, which relies a little more on believability, is strained a little more by that ending versus Happy Gilmore, which has almost no suspension of disbelief. You have a midget riding a tricycle in his dream sequence. There's very little suspension of disbelief. Anything can happen in this movie, and you'd be willing to laugh it off because it's comedy first, drama second, versus Tin Cup, which is clearly drama first, comedy second.
Anything can happen when you go to your happy place.
Right. When Julie Bowen speaks, you listen. Right? She's in Modern Family and Lost. You don't argue with people that have both of those credentials.
Right? She's in something else too that I remember watching and going like one of those like, oh, she's a lady from Modern Family, because like she was in so many of these movies before that. She was in
Ed, the bowling alley lawyer show.
Oh, okay. That's not one. I'll think of it eventually. But
Die Hard is an episode of Family Matters that people just don't recognize that fits in.
It's a dream sequence,
right? It's the prequel to Family Matters. I agree. This might be my favorite Adam Sandler movie, and we're going to talk about Adam a bunch tonight. I understand people that just can't stand him and just don't appreciate him at all, and there are a lot of them, especially now because he's not as popular as he once was. But this movie was huge in my house when I was growing up, and I mean, it's just, for me, it hits all the right buttons. There are so many moments that just slay me when he's first swinging the golf club with the movers out front and he's drilling the lady and her husband in their mansion down the street. I mean, it just cracks me up. Carl Weathers with his hand. I showed this to my daughters when I rewatched it last week. They were dying. They thought it was hilarious. Chubbs, is just a great character. Ben
Stiller's character,
right? This movie just, I think, hits a lot of buttons for me, including the villain, and I'm struggling to remember his name right now. Shooter McGavin, I know, but I'm saying the actor. I can't remember. Chris McDonald? Is that what it is?
Yes.
Christopher McDonald?
I'm going to look at Where's
I legitimately called the Mark and Brian radio show when he was on one day to compliment him on his movies because I love Christopher McDonald. I think it is his name. He's the voice actor.
Yep.
Is it?
Yep.
He's a voice actor as well. He did a voice as the villain in The Iron Giant, which is one of my favorite animated movies. And I just think he's got a great, he knows rhythm, and his comedic timing is so hilarious in this as the bad guy. You just freaking hate Shooter McGavin.
Well,
he is so easy to hate. He's amazing. When he makes out with the grandma and she's wearing the kiss mask, I mean, the guy is a riot.
Well, and what's so funny, I know you don't watch a lot of sports in real life, but on ESPN and stuff, there's a new golf PGA 2K21 game out, and he's one of the guys playing the game.
You can play as Shooter McGavin?
No. In the commercial, he's one of the guys. Shooter McGavin is playing in the commercial, playing the game.
That's hilarious.
Which just shows you how great of actor he is, and how great this movie is as a golf movie that even the PGA is like, we're going to utilize Happy Gilmore in our.
To this day, when something doesn't fit right, I say, "Are you too good for your home?"
Man, I'll tell you what. Watching Happy Gilmore and then playing golf with my dad I tried to lay down and putt it like a pool stick.
I will legitimately say, every time I play golf,
you try
with and I only ever really play with my two brothers and my dad. We quote all three of these movies. Gilmore, Tin Cup, and Caddyshack always come up. Some point you're going to say all of these, no, go. Like,
what about greatest game ever played? Are you quoting that?
I'm trying to forget it through alcohol. That movie is horrible, but we're going to move on.
Before we do, real quick though,
yeah,
the chat mentioned it. We'd be remiss if we did not mention one of the greatest fight scenes.
Yeah, I think it was Jeffrey. No, sorry, Coach Vic mentioning Bob Barker.
I mean, come on. That's where I'm always like, I think of The Price is Wrong. And then when they did a short afterwards for charity a couple years ago, Bob Barker and Adam Sandler, it's quite entertaining to rewatch that. They revisit this.
That's hilarious. Yeah, it's that fight sequence is hilarious and so memorable. And and you can even see there's moments when Adam Sandler is laughing. When he says The Price is Wrong, bitch, you can see him laughing because he's like, this is amazing.
He's like, I reached out to Bob Barker, and who would have thought he would have said yes?
He said yes.
I'm fighting him.
Right? So good. So good. All right, so those are our 3 golf picks, our favorite golf movies. And really, even though we watched others and tried to find other picks, these were the 3 from the start for me. I didn't even really question it.
I feel like these first 2 categories, this was the theme for us. We were pretty set up. We knew we didn't disagree going in because we really didn't have sentimental picks. Legend of Bagger Vance would have made it if we had a 4th for me. But
yeah, we talked a little bit about Legend of Bagger Vance, and I don't mind talking. I talked to Coach Vic about and my wife was like, "Oh yeah, I like Legend of Bagger Vance." I said, "Yeah, it's a cute movie." And Robert Redford, Redford was trying to do like The Natural of golf movies. But I commented to my wife that something she hadn't noticed and that I had writer teachers tell me about, which was this archetype of the magical or mystical Negro. This sort of racist archetype that was very common back in the day for African Americans to play was this mystical character who would help the white man with all of his problems, and how this is like the extreme version of the mystical Negro character. And I had not really contemplated how that was always a thing that kind of irked me about the movie Bagger Vance was sort of a ridiculous, dramatically over the top idea of Bagger Vance. It makes no sense. They don't even try to like make sense of it.
Oh, I'm glad Chris Barris in this chat.
This one?
Yeah.
Or is it this one?
Well, no, but the originally started, I'm like, you know what? If anyone would think Happy Gilmore has the greatest opening sequence, it's Chris Barrett. because I know
the hockey bit.
what.
The hockey bit when he's like breaking the glass.
No, if I know Chris Barrett from what I see him in the chats, it's because Happy's humping everything with at the very beginning.
My daughter thought that was hilarious. My daughter thought that was hilarious.
Where he has all the different jobs. That's what I believe Chris Barrett, if I know him.
Shoots the nail gun in the guy's helmet. But it was an interesting look at that film. I do feel like it's not as good as any of these, no matter what.
Right.
But I just feel like the film in general is a real uneven tone. It can't really decide if it's trying to be funny, if it's trying to be dramatic, if it's trying to be beautifully glorifying golf as a sport. It doesn't really have a constant or consistent tone through it. And I do think a lot of it is on Will Smith, and I don't necessarily know that the directors or writers had a vision for what that character was supposed to be. It's a little bit inconsistent for me.
Right. No, I get that.
And really long and slow.
Yeah. Like I said, I enjoyed it. And if we had a 4th spot, it would have made it by default.
Yeah, that would have been our 4th, like Goon would have been our 4th
right.
hockey film, right? People talking about Rocky. Yeah, we did boxing last time. So if you missed that, take a look back at our last show. Tonight is football, hockey, and golf, and we just wrapped up golf.
Unless you think Rocky 3 is the best Rocky movie, don't watch our last episode because you're gonna.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you think Rocky's a great hockey movie. It's possible that the StreamYard chat is a little slower than the YouTube chat. Let's go to football, and I love your slideshow here, partly because you completely covered. You completely covered Burt Reynolds' head and the title of the movie he's in, and instead just showed his bare chest and those disco pants he's wearing on the cover of The Longest Yard poster. And that's what that is. Under the first L in football, that is the Burt Reynolds from the poster for The Longest Yard. And if you've never seen that.
Because listen, John, what do people want? Do people want it where it's up with there where Denzel's face is and where it says The Longest Yard and you see Burt Reynolds? Or do you want to see that massive mane of hair on the chest?
You want that bearskin rug. You want that bearskin rug right there in your face. Right? And there's a bunch of great ones here. And I will say one that I failed to rewatch, which might affect this whole thing. I never rewatched Brian's Song. So as a result, it didn't make my list.
So that was one that I was trying to watch, but then I was too cheap to pony up $15 to buy it because I couldn't find it streaming and I couldn't get it at the library. So I
had the exact same problem. So I had to rate that one on memory.
Yep. So that was one that same. I did watch the trailer to try and see if I could re-spark something
and I will say, Biggie Shaq, I watched both versions of The Longest Yard, and I would probably agree with you that the original might have been better than the sequel, but I will also say the original has not aged well for me. And I don't know how long, Biggie, it's been since you watched the original film, but the opening moments when he basically beats a woman really don't sit so well for me.
And I
had a hard time watching that, and I had forgotten about it. He slams her against the wall and like chokes her against the wall and then throws her to the floor. And I'm like, okay, this is a little extreme. And then later, my favorite part is somebody said to me, yeah, but he goes to jail for it. And I said, no, he doesn't. He goes to jail for stealing a car, running away from the police, and dumping it in the river. He does not go to jail for beating a woman. He does not get accused of that at all. That is not on his list of charges for going to jail.
So I'm just gonna let you guys all know a little sneak peek here in the chat. Some of you guys are gonna be upset with our list. I'm seeing some people comment. You guys are gonna be upset.
Ooh, the real Rudy was arrested for fraud. I feel like I need to research some Rudy facts.
So Rudy is one of those that I know I kind of said it's not, but it kind of is pretty. It's pretty Disney fabricated.
Is it? I rewatched We Are Marshall and I enjoyed it. I just didn't love it. There's a lot of good chats going on here. I will say I'm not a Friday Night Lights TV show fan, but my wife is obsessed and loved it. It felt like Beverly Hills 90210, the football years, is what it felt like for me. And those actors felt just as, I mean, honestly, Taylor Kitsch is Luke Perry 2.0. I mean, there's no difference for me.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but
I'm not a Taylor Kitsch fan.
But Michael B. Jordan
is good, and obviously the coach is amazing. But they spent so much time with Taylor Kitsch. He's basically the lead of that show. And my favorite was when John Carter from Mars came out. Everybody's like, God, I didn't think he was a bad actor. And I'm like, you didn't watch Friday Night Lights close enough. Like,
man, I love the TV show. So
I'm in the minority. I know that like legitimately that most people love that show. And for me, I just can't get over Taylor Kitsch and his girlfriend. They're just way too 90210 for me.
Clear eyes, full heart, can't lose.
Right? Some love. I love the chat. I'm an equal opportunity ass whooper now. Yeah, No Last Boy Scout. We talked about that as well as a sports film. Is it a football movie? Maybe that'll end up in our miscellaneous list. Who knows? So let's talk about some football movies. Remember the Titans for me is my favorite football movie. I'm not a huge football sport fan, and there's not a ton of, in my opinion, amazing football sports movies. This movie gets me weepy every time.
Yeah. So this one definitely, I can't say enough about what I like about it. This one was the one I did do a little bit of research, and I'm like, huh. And it's not like bad, but like I get why Disney made the plays and the moves that they made of like the integration happened like 6 years before the team went on to the state. Like, so they added that element of it a little bit more to make it a little bit more current.
So the school integrated for a few years before Coach Boone took over.
That's where I haven't done enough, but it was before this like championship run. Let's say that. So I don't know when Boone was there and how much, but there are elements of that where they take, and it's not a bad thing because I don't think it does a disservice to. It's not a Cool Runnings, like it's still a showing, and
it's not completely reinventing stuff, but it's gently nudging things.
Gently moving stuff. Like I think like that, like Bertier's accident happens after the state championship game. And so, but Disney puts it before to give it that kind of
gotcha.
Things like that. Again,
or the fact that they didn't play any close games.
Right. They didn't. They dominated. That's what Disney portrayed them because you have to as the underdog in this. And they literally were not the underdog in like any game that they went to. And
gotcha.
And I think if anyone actually thinks they danced when they warmed up.
Right.
But I don't say that in any way to take away from it. But that's one of those, like, if you're like, oh, this is so cool because of all the things that line up, you're like, well, Disney what it does. They do what they know how to make a good sports movie.
Absolutely.
Unless it's golf.
For me, the performances are really, really great. Denzel, obviously, it doesn't need to be praised. Will Patton is great. Fantastic. As the assistant coach or the defensive line coach.
Yep.
I think there's a lot. I mean, Donald Faison is great. Ryan Gosling is great. There's a lot of great actors.
What's his face? Plays a heavy set.
I'm not going to remember all their names, but yeah,
from My Life with Earl.
Earl, yeah.
My name is Earl.
My name is Earl.
Which, by the way, y'all, if you haven't seen him lately, Google the big guy I'm talking about. Dude is jacked.
Oh, is he?
He lost a lot of weight and is just jacked. Like, yeah.
So, like, for me, like, in this movie, the chemistry of the actors is really strong. The music is wonderful of the era kind of stuff. And yeah, the themes of integration and teamwork and hard work paying off, I think all of that stuff really, really works well for me.
And what is it, Jules, the he
From The Wire.
He's in The Wire, but he's also in a sports movie we talked about last time. He's in Creed. He's in the Creed movies.
Oh, yeah.
He plays the box Apollo Creed's trainer's son, whatever, who now owns the
There's some discussion about Brian's song. Is it a football movie? Is it a friendship movie? And I think there's these Ethan Suplee. There's the name.
Ethan Suplee. Yep.
Yeah, wonderful. It's hard to have these discussions. What is a sports movie or not a sport? I mean, we went round and round on draft day. I will legitimately say my dad said, watch draft day. Kevin Costner, you'll like it. A sports movie. And it was really good.
Yeah.
Like, I legitimately went into that movie going, this is not going to be good. Draft day is not bad.
It's not. It's not bad. I will say my only really issue with the acting and which is a shame because I like him now. Ryan Hurst, who played Gary Bertier.
Yeah.
You can tell he grew into his acting chops later on as in like Sons of Anarchy, which he's fantastic in. But I feel like he was one of the few of the high school athletes who his scenes were a little painful to watch because it felt. And
you included a little.
I did.
A little.
I did a little shot.
But on draft day, for those that have not seen it, my only critique of draft day is that you can tell that they wrote a screenplay for a younger actor and they just cast Kevin Costner when he came available. He is definitely too old to play a guy who is basically trying to show in his first real job how he's going to succeed. And he's getting his very first like kid on the way. Like he's older enough to play the grandpa, not the guy having his first kid. Like his age bugged me a little bit in this movie. That was my only critique of draft day.
Which, if that's it, I mean, half the cast of Friday Night Lights is 32 playing high school kids.
That's the 902 of those.
Now we know why. Right? Now we know why you don't like Friday Night Lights.
There you go. There's some love for draft day. I didn't realize as many people liked it. I had heard mixed things and had missed it. So it was my first time watching it. Chris Barrett says, no, Brian's song is about football.
Yep.
I can hear both sides. I totally agree both sides. I need to rewatch it. That's the truth. I have not seen it in a long time.
You know what, John? We should make it that we rewatch it, and then when we do our guest show in 2, when we're just bringing people on, we're just talking about sports movies, we can see if we did it wrong or not. So Biggie's dropping a lot of basketball movies, which are coming up next week, Biggie.
Next week is basketball, buddy. You better be ready. Round ball. I think it's, in my opinion, my second favorite category of sports movie would be basketball. For me, it's baseball and basketball. But I know you're a big boxing and mixed martial arts.
I am. I like them all, so I can't. Not really. We'll see.
Well, let's see what else we got here. We got your favorite moment.
This is the quintessential part where I'm just like, no, again, this goes back to my tin cup thing of like, or this is what bothered me with the state of disbelief. I'm like, no high school kid's going to do that to a coach and go,
no,
like no point for it. It was just like Disney's like, hey, point to the coach. It's going to look really good.
Well, and then for me, it's the shot after this, which is the like dolly in on the coach's face, right?
And the coach kind of almost comes back like he like does like a. Like he's kind of like, and it's like, come on, like that.
Yeah. It's hilarious. It's a hilarious moment.
And so I literally was rewatching it a couple of days ago, and I screenshot this, and that's what I think I'm going to start to do. Like, just randomly find like, what are some of the worst screenshots in sports movies that we
watch? That's hilarious. All right, so I'm so glad you included that. Thank you. So let's talk about Invincible. Rod has gone to bed, but he is a big Philadelphia Eagles fan, and I rewatched this. I watched it with my girls even. This is a really good movie that holds up really well for me. I think it's very funny. I think it's also just like it gives Mark Wahlberg the right amount of acting. He doesn't have to do a terrible amount in this. It's the people around him that do far more. He just has to like be the straight and narrow guy. You give Greg Kinnear and you give Elizabeth Banks like more to do, and he just rides the line down the middle. Invincible is a really good movie.
Another one. Don't look up the real stuff if you.
I mean, he doesn't like. He had what, like 2 seasons, 3 seasons.
Yeah, and like he played like amateur ball 2 seasons before for a Philly team, and there wasn't an open tryout. So I'm here. I feel like I'm being white whale today, just dogging on.
So I only saw once, but liked it. Some people saying all sports movies are about friendship and relationships. Hey, interesting debate.
So, and this has no bearing on it, those things I just said. This was higher up on the list for you than me. This is definitely one that I rewatched it after you're like, Invincible has to make the list. So I'm like, okay. And I watched it. So I'm like, okay, let's make sure I'm
remembering it. Yeah.
Yeah. I would have put some other football ones up. And I wonder if it's how I watched the movie, if that played into it. I literally went from Remember the Titans, Miracle to Invincible.
Okay.
So from a quality of a Disney, get you in the emotional feels. I mean,
you're steadily going downhill.
I wouldn't say. I mean, Miracle's up there. It might not be remembered, but it's up there on the emotions. But Invincible is not at that level of those 2 movies, in my opinion, when it comes to Disney and their emotions that they get you for. And so I think that probably did play into it a little bit too, of like just probably the viewing. Like I enjoyed it. I'm not trying to dog it, but I definitely would have put there were some other ones that we'll discuss I probably might have thrown in over it.
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
Because of that.
But there's a great discussion about Jerry Maguire going on in the
which
chat.
We had that. That's another one we had.
I feel like we discussed that a bunch. Is it a sports movie? Is it not a sports movie? I felt like it wasn't enough. But I love Chris Barrett and Chris of I Got Issues going back and forth. How do you quantify? And draft day was a similar problem. There's no actual sporting event in draft day. They watch a couple of clips of one game, and that's it. The rest of the movie has no sports. So, I think there were some interesting debates on how you quantify or qualify a sports movie versus, for me, even at least Field of Dreams had several games where you watched portions of games, whether they went to a game or whether it was played there on the Field of Dreams itself.
Yeah.
Compared to draft day, at least.
Yeah. And I think that's what you can get into of some of those. Is it a sports movie because it's based, or, we talked about Green Street Hooligans last week or last episode. It's based in the soccer world.
Right.
Because of, you had the Hooligans who were part of a club team. You see soccer at the practice with the little kids, and you see soccer match one time. Like that's it. And so you're looking at the fan aspect of that. And so that's part of, I think, the discussion that you can look at it even from the idea of, well, is it a sport from like, I think, is it a sport is a different conversation than is it a sports movie?
A great point. Yeah,
and
totally.
Because I think there are a lot like Jerry Maguire, Draft Day. They are all in the realm of sports. There's the I'm not.
I know we talked about Moneyball last time with baseball, which is again about the front office.
Al Pacino, Matthew McConaughey.
Sunday.
No, in Matthew McConaughey, it's about gambling. It's about sports betting.
Oh, I don't know that one.
I think it's Matthew McConaughey, but it's like I know it's Al Pacino, but it's a sports betting. It's like all something, but it deals in the realm of an element of sports, right. And so I think that's something.
John and Bearded clearly disagree in the standards in place for their list. I mean, Jerry Maguire and Draft Day didn't make it. Field of Dreams did by a narrow margin. It's worthy of debate. I love it.
Yeah, and I think to clarify though, when we were talking about how we wanted to kind of format,
Coach Vic.
that's great. I think we talked about we wanted to try and get to our list would be different if we both came up with a top 5 pick or a top 3 pick for the most part. But as we've noticed going on, we knew that a lot of our movies were going to be similar. So we didn't want to create a John brings a top 5 list, I bring a top 5 list. 4 of our movies are the same and we're repeating ourselves. And then we figured it'd be better to, figure out what, can we agree on a top 5?
And we really didn't want to necessarily do a top 5 show. We really just wanted to have a broad discussion about sports as we could possibly have.
Right.
Sports movies, that is.
Yeah, because we're not ranking. I mean, some of them will flat out say, Remember the Titans is up there as one of ours. And, but we're trying to figure out, I think people can get too caught up when you rank it of you're going to put Remember Titans above Invincible. It's okay, tomato. Yes, I would. But
exactly. Right. But yeah. So let's keep going. We got Adam Sandler strikes again. And I'm going to say, I might be willing to say this is his best sports movie. As much as I love Happy Gilmore, I probably watched Waterboy more growing up. And I laugh so hard watching this freaking movie. When SportsCenter runs the highlights of the towel boy who gets put in for the other NFL team and he gets wiped out. I love the integration of sports on a big scale here in Waterboy. This movie is hilarious. And Sandler, this is he always plays the lovable idiot, and he is perfect in this part. I love the supporting cast, the coaches. I mean, Henry Winkler is great. The other coach, the special teams coach, you can't understand. I love his mom. I think the cast is just really well suited to their parts, and everybody gets it. Everybody gets the tone. They all understand what they're trying to do here. And nobody is trying to do something different. Everybody's playing to the same game here. And it's just hilarious. With my brothers, we constantly say to each other, fourth quarter, you can't hold anything back. Last game of the season, can't hold anything back. It's a constant. This movie is so quotable, so much so that 2 people have already said foosball is the devil in the chat. I love this movie.
Yeah, and I think you're right, because I think a lot of times you can see a movie that's bad that where one actor, you're this actor was knew what this movie was going to be, and he just went buck wild, and then everyone else is playing it straight. Everyone in this movie is all right, we know what we're getting into, and they're all at this this is ridiculous. No, you're wrong, Colonel Sanders. And
it's so good.
Oh man, I think that's what's difficult. I think of when you're lumping stuff up into a category like this. The special teams coaches at Orgeron.
Oh my God, easy man, older me.
It's so true.
Yeah. Wake her ass up. We got to win it tomorrow. Rob Schneider's got a great little part in this. So funny.
But that's what I think it's tough about sports movies is. This is a completely different movie than I'll Remember the Titans, but they're both good in their own case. What you're going in to get, and some people only want to watch sports movies because of the drama or the highs and lows, the emotional feel. And some people are going to take offense that we're going to put Waterboy in there, or one that I'll just say didn't make the list that was up there for me of The Replacements. Those are entertaining. They're just funny movies. And that's what makes it tough, because it's what mood are you in? Do you want Disney to stomp on your heartstrings, or do you want Adam Sandler or someone else to make you laugh?
And for me, every actor in this movie has a moment that makes me laugh. Henry Winkler is hilarious. And when he shows off his tattoo, I die every time. He is really on fire in this. When he tries to sneak out of the big game because the pressure is too much. I mean, his flashbacks and his 70s outfits, I mean, it is so beautifully done. Every layer is in keeping with what it's trying to do here. And for me, it feels like everything that was like close to being perfect in Happy Gilmore, and there's a ton, is perfect in Waterboy.
Yep.
And yeah, Mama said alligators are angry because he got so many teeth and no toothbrush.
Ornery.
Yeah. It's just so, this movie is great. And yeah, for me, it was right up there with Remember the Titans for me as like my favorite football movies. It was like I could easily put them together.
Yeah, it's funny too. Like, there's like, you know, like just a random him riding the lawnmower like to get around. I get flashbacks from like the high school down the road from us had a drive your tractor to school day. Like, so I'm from the sticks. Like, my school didn't have it, so like we thought we were cooler than that, but our rivals did. So like I reminiscent of that. I'm like, oh yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. So let's move on from Adam Sandler's last time being in our discussion to Friday Night Lights, which I will say I've seen this 2 times. And it is a very good football movie, but it would probably be my least favorite. I know you're a bigger Friday Nights fan, so let's get from you.
So, yeah, and this is where we have a little give and take, I think, here. This is the most realistic when it comes to like football movie for me, from the idea of I get transplanted into that environment. Like, I went to a high school where our town shut down. Like on Friday nights, you were in the stands watching the game. Nothing in the, on Main Street was open. Like that was football. Like that was what you did in our town. And so for me, I appreciated the drama aspect of it. I appreciated the, the sports aspect of it, where not every sports movie has to end in a positive note of like, I think it has its moments where it's more meaningful that way and things like that. So this is one though, Coach Vic saying, read the book. I want to read the book. This is one I do want to read the book, and I have not read it. But I feel like you have some great, I'm not a huge Billy Bob Thornton fan, to be honest. Yeah. I think he does a great job in the role.
He does. Yeah. He's really well suited.
Tim McGraw, I think, does a really good job as your classic cliche alcoholic father reliving his fantasies, his glory days through his son. And I think that's a very good character. You even get the aspects of like, when Booby Miles gets his knee injured and he's like, I don't want to go to this doctor, which is the best doctor, because we're playing their school and they're going to tell me, they're going to, give me bad news about my knee just because they don't want me to play. And like all these kind of psychological mindsets that like high school kids have to go through. And like, you look at that aspect of, and I'm swatting because there's like a gnat or something, if you're asking. I've noticed I've done it.
Tim McGraw, by the way, has 2 really good football movies in his arsenal. He's got this, and I've considered seriously The Blind Side, which I believe Jeffrey mentioned earlier, which is the film with Sandra Bullock and he as parents who adopt a young black man who has nowhere to really live. And in the end, for me, it became there's not enough football here. The movie is definitely about something different, and football plays a smaller part. Was it Michael Orr? Is that his name? The young athlete. But yeah, Tim McGraw in sports movies, he's pretty consistent.
And so when's the last time have you seen this recently?
It's probably been 3 years or 4 years.
So what's funny is I'm a big Friday. I love the TV show too. There are 2 actors or actresses who are in the movie that then are also in the TV show.
Really?
Yeah. The guy who plays Buddy Garrity in the TV show is in the movie. So in the same type of role, like the booster, where he's like the booster who thinks he knows too much. And I'm gonna blank on her name, and it's gonna drive me insane. The coach's wife.
Okay. Oh,
and because it's a different name. So Taylor is in the TV show, and this is I forget what it is here, but she has she is not even like, you just see her kind of in the movie. Like, she's not, I think she has like maybe 4 speaking lines.
and then, but in the show, she was the wife.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And so she's the wife of the coach in the movie, and she's the wife and the coach of the TV show. They just decided to actually give her something to do.
Connie Britton or
Connie
Britton.
Yep. So
that's hilarious. I didn't realize she played the same part in both.
Yeah, she
had such a small part then.
Yeah, she really did. She didn't have a chance to shine, and she's one of the best parts of that TV show.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Chris Barrett, it was a very good feel-good movie, but at the same time, aren't a lot of sports movies feel-good movies? Like, that's an interesting comment. I think a lot of sports movies make us feel proud and pumped up and excited. And I remember hearing about a lot of coaches who would have their kids watch this whatever sports movie and get them all pumped up before the big game, because they have that uplifting, you can achieve anything kind of quality, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's roll on to the movie that most often gets called that uplifting, you can do it hero movie. I showed my daughters Rudy, and I will legitimately say it's like 2/3 about schooling and 1/3 about football. But for me, the lessons that the character in the movie at least learns about life translate to, I can, if I work really hard and just bust my butt, maybe this could turn into something.
Yeah. And what's interesting though, because I mean, this is one that it's either on your list as like one of your favorite football movies, or as I've seen it in the chat here, people that say Rudy isn't even really a football movie, because if you're on, I watched it last night. I saw
issues right off the bat.
I watched it last night, or I watched it Thursday night, and I was timing it because I know I asked you, I think in our chat, I'm like, is it a football movie though? Because we were talking about drafting, we were talking about these, and it literally takes a hour and 5 minutes before you see football, like, because it all is a process of getting to Notre Dame. Right. Getting into the college.
And he goes and watches games and is in the stands outside trying to get into games, but no, we don't see the plays and the action until way later.
Yeah. But this is also one of those that it's, plays into, a lot of it's Disney fabricated a little bit of, Joe Montana was actually on that team.
He was at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
That season.
I don't know what grade he was in, but he was on the team when Rudy was on the team. And if you see, he'll do an interview where it's like, yeah, he got carried off the field, but it kind of was more of like, he basically says it was a joke without it being like, we're not picking on him, but it's more of like, oh,
there was an element of sarcasm.
Yes. There's an element of sarcasm, and Divine, the coach at the end, has come out and said a lot too, of like, where he's like, I kind of just signed a waiver because they make me look like an antagonist bully here, and no one's. He's like, if a player actually dropped off their jersey on my desk, they wouldn't have gotten it back.
Well, I have a feeling I Got Issues is going to hate our final segment when we get there, because clearly he's voting for movies like Any Given Sunday over Rudy, and I will legitimately rail a little bit on it.
But I will say Rudy though, it hits all the right notes for me still. I
will say legitimately the music for Rudy it's one of the greatest sports soundtracks ever.
The music for all the movies we've watched. And I wonder if part of it because of the era that they take place in, like Invincible opens up with Jim Croce. I've Got a Name, like, come on, like the score for Rudy, you just hear it and it gets you in the feels. And when Rudy's, he's standing up, Rudy's giving the speech as a kid, and then he's doing it in the locker room. And John Favreau, is like, I know him, he's so little. Like all of these moments, like, so if you can, that's where I say, like, if you are a fan of some of these movies and you're like, hey, I don't really want to know if it's a real movie, don't. Like, I can still read that stuff and be like, I still love Rudy. I know 2/3 of it is not true. But if you can still enjoy it for what it is.
Well, you're going to be happy in a little bit here, Issues. We'll get to that in just a bit here, I think, with just a moment here.
The Program is also another underrated, I think, football movie.
And that's what Jeffrey said too.
Oh, I saw it with Issues, yeah. Yep.
So let's roll on through to these are the top 5 that we agreed upon as far as our favorite sports football related movies. And we have some extra picks going on here. Firstly,
I'm introducing a new segment to the show, guys. So this is my new segment that I'm creating, and it's called John Destroys Your Favorite Movie, because I feel like we can do this. Every show we can at least find one movie where John can destroy your favorite movie.
So I will legitimately say, when we went into watching sports movies, there were 2 that I had to watch that were either somewhat or completely disappointing when I rewatched them. Longest Yard was one of them. Both versions of Longest Yard didn't hold up very well for me. And the other was this one. And I will legitimately say, I think Any Given Sunday is a mess. This movie does not even know what it's trying to say about football. It has no sense of itself. It is the best looking sports movie that you're going to find about football. I think the photography and the production quality is amazing. And that's part of the problem of the movie. So here's the bottom line on Any Given Sunday. It can't pick a lane. This movie cannot decide. Is it here to glorify and make football out to be the modern gladiators of sport? Or is it here to be a hardcore look in the mirror at football that really makes you question some of the things that the sport is doing today? Because the truth is, this movie can't pick. This movie cannot decide. So you have moments that look like something out of The Natural with the greatest photography where these guys look just like heroes. And then you have some guy getting his freaking eye ripped out and it's falling on the field. Like, what the heck is that moment? This movie cannot make up its mind. And as a result, it is a sloppy mess. If you think it's there to like show off like, wow, the football is such an amazing sport, then they should cut John Woods out of this movie because his character makes no freaking sense at all. In fact, he's the perfect epitome of why this movie doesn't work. On one level, he's showing you how horrible football is now with all the things they're pumping in these athletes and how they're ignoring all the physical issues. But then he gives this impassioned speech at the end when his character is getting kicked off the field about how important this sport is and how, no, this movie cannot make up its mind what it's trying to say. It is an absolute mess. And it's a shame. I think the acting in this movie is really good. I think Pacino eats a few scenery bits. I think Quaid is great. I think LL is great. I think Jamie Foxx shows here he could do a lot. Mm-hmm. The problem is this movie can't decide what it's trying to do. It is an absolute mess. I don't think it's a love letter to football either. It's trying to be a hardcore look at the things that are wrong with the sport. But then at the same time, it's glorifying everything that the sport is doing and trying to make it all look beautiful and perfect. This is a mess of a movie, and it does not hold up in any way.
So I think that's a lot with sometimes with Stone's movies. Like, they're shot really well. They're done. Any Given Sunday, this is one of those movies we're talking about that if you would have said, hey, what are your top 5 football movies? Any Given Sunday, I would have instantly said was in my top 5. First one that I went back to rewatch. And as I'm watching it, I'm going, this is not what I was remembering it to be. And I think that you articulated a lot better why it doesn't work from those aspects. And man, it's tough though, because I love like Steam and Billy, Steam and Willie Beeman, and yep, there it is. And
I think
yes,
a waste of great acting for me. The funny thing is, I assumed people loved this movie, that it was their favorite sports football movie. And when I posted on my Instagram, I was surprised how many people replied telling me that they hated this movie. I was shocked. I had at least 5 to 10 people text me saying, God, this movie is garbage. I can't believe people like it.
Yeah.
I agree. Football is something of a beautiful disaster. The problem is the movie is also a beautiful disaster.
I think it's trying to, and I think it might be just trying to figure out how do you shoot that? How do you take a movie? Because I do think you're right. Like, it's trying to figure out, does it try and glorify, because we as a society glorify football. I'm saying this as a diehard football fan. But then you do know the underbelly of some of the aspects. It's very similar to ESPN thought they were going to be cool and do the TV show that lasted a season where it was called Playmakers or something. And it was very similar to this style model. And it's hard to try and figure out where that line is. It's hard to get that balance of showing the underbelly of something while also still not demonifying, something that we love as a society.
Well, and I also think, like, for me, it became a question of, is the movie trying to be The Natural, or is it trying to be 8 Men Out? And both films have a very beautiful photography style, but one of them is clearly glorifying a sport, and the other one is clearly pointing out the flaws in the sport. And I don't think Any Given Sunday picked one. They just were kind of like, we'll do both at the same time.
I love that we have scared Coach Vic not want to rewatch this movie because
it's beautiful to look at, and the acting is amazing. I just don't think it adds up to much. And Pacino is a little bit all over the place. Like, I don't know that he picked the lane as a performer.
Well. And I will say one of my favorite parts of Any Given Sunday, though.
Jessie is in it. Yeah,
is how all the opposing coaches were famous football coaches. Or famous football players. And you had some legends that were on the other side of the field, which is... Well,
they mentioned LT. I mean, Lawrence Taylor's in it, right?
Yep.
He's got a significant part as a player dealing with concussion drama.
Yeah, and I'm just looking. You had Bob St. Clair. So you have a lot of like some solid football players. Y.A. Tittle, Pat Tomei, Dick Butkus, Warren Moon, Johnny Unitas. All opposing coaches, which I thought was really cool.
So sorry if I destroyed somebody's favorite movie, although I will legitimately say very few people told me that they loved Any Given Sunday. Most people told me that they were like, I don't really care for it.
Coach Vic, I
had talked to a bunch of friends that love this movie, that absolutely adore this movie.
I actually think I have the DVD set of season 1 of Playmakers, Coach Vic. So I can AOK that to you if you really want to watch it again.
All right, so let's continue on here with my sentimental pick, which I saw I got issues mentioned in the chat. I freaking love this. Firstly, I'm a big Quantum Leap fan. So you tell me Scott Bakula is a lead in a movie, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to check that out. Secondly, you throw Kathy Ireland into a movie in that age I was when I saw this movie. I'm not going to complain about that either. I really do think this movie is ridiculous and doesn't deserve to be among the 5 greatest football movies. But for me, there's just something nostalgic about Necessary Roughness. I can even overlook Sinbad. I can get past his performance. Yes, Kathy freaking Ireland is right. This movie for me, I'm a big Bakula fan. He kind of carries it. The coach, great. I mean, this movie, I think, is underrated, underappreciated, often forgotten and dismissed.
Which is why it's a sentimental pick.
Right. Quantum Leap, I agree. Todd Christensen is one of my favorite all-time TV shows as well. Yeah, Sinbad, right? Sinbad, don't forget. Absolutely. So I don't know. Did you ever see this movie? Does it have any?
It's one of those like I saw it at some point as a kid because she comes out as a kicker, right?
Right.
Yep.
She's a
saw it
soccer player, and yeah.
I saw it at some point. It would be one that, like, if you were like, this has to make my list, I would have had to, like, okay, I need to rewatch it.
It would. It's definitely, again, it was like number 6 for me, but it's the kind of movie that would replace on my personal list. Friday Night Lights is going, and Necessary Roughness is staying.
And which I probably would do with my sentimental pick. I'd get rid of Invincible.
There you go.
And I would put in Varsity Blues because, as I texted you, this was a movie I was the target demographic for. It was Friday Night Lights, but with the cast of Dawson's Creek.
Right.
And I think I was a freshman in high school, I think, when this aired. So this was right there for me. You know, I give it a 10, a freaking 10.
I think this is where I Got Issues is now feeling a lot better about our picks. Between our sentimental picks, he's like, okay, I can breathe a little easier. two out of the 3 movies I mentioned that you guys had ignored are here. Yeah. I don't want your life.
This is one that, like, I will rewatch it, and I know it plays because of nostalgia for me.
Right.
But I think for what it is, it holds up for what it's trying to be. I think it's trying to be a teen. It's trying to be 90210 set in a small football town, and it works for me, and I'm there for it. You got Paul Walker, like, which is fantastic. I think Scott Kane steals the show.
Yeah, Scott Kane he's good on this.
Yeah, like I said, Kane. But yeah, Kahn.
James Caan, Scott Caan.
Yeah, I think he steals. I think he steals a lot of the stuff that he's in.
Right.
John Voight is your classic.
He's not going to be bad, right?
No, he does what you want him to do.
Right.
James Vanderbeek, you could have replaced with anybody, and I'd been okay with it.
I knew you'd be happy, my man. This was based on my friend's high school football team, and he said this doesn't take too many liberties. There you go.
That's
Perry Luke is the second coming of Luke Perry. There you go.
I mean, I know when we were talking, like I said, Varsity, but you're like, it would not make my top 5. Like, it was a quick response.
Yeah, it would not.
Yeah. No. I'm like,
I would put Friday Night Lights ahead of it, even though they're ostensibly kind of the same movie. Like, one more dramatic and one more melodramatic.
I mean, now I'm curious though, if Coach Vic says is based off of his friend's high school football team, like the teacher scene where she freelances as a stripper.
Is that with the whipped cream?
No, that was the Paul Walker's girlfriend who
right.
was trying to seduce James Vanderbeek because she's not going to get out of the town anymore.
I will legitimately say I think I saw this in the theater, and then I saw it one other time.
No, the high school teacher who teaches sex ed also moonlights as a stripper at the local town, because in a small town like this, you're not going to not know, apparently. But it's for what it is. I enjoy it.
There you go. So, folks, that is the end of the program and the slideshow. We've talked about football. We've talked about hockey. We've talked about golf. And, we even talked about whipped cream bikinis. It's all happened here tonight. If you enjoyed this, I recommend checking out part 1 of our show. If you haven't seen it, we talked about baseball, Olympics, soccer, kids sports, and the Olympics. I think I said Olympics twice. Boxing, I forgot.
Boxing. You forgot boxing, yeah.
We talked about a bunch of great sports. Will we do this again? Yes. Will there be debate in the chat? You better believe it, because we're going to be talking about basketball, and then we're each going to make a list of some of our favorite films that are maybe more on the fringe of sports, or maybe are sports that aren't as quickly identified as athletics.
And when we are making this list, so we are going to agree on our top 5 basketball movies are going to fit into our list. We're going to have our typical agreed list. And we figured then with this next category, it's such a broad category of, is it a sport? And we're going to have so many different loves that we're like, we're going to be arguing nonstop. Like, no, this has to. So since we only have 2 categories next week, we're going to stretch out that, is it a sport, a little bit longer. And we're going to bring our own list. So I'm going to have 5. So there might be some overlap. I don't think so.
We'll debate it in advance to kind of avoid overlap as best we can. But yeah, you're going to get a lot of films that are on the edge, Robot Jocks, who knows? There's a lot of sport movies that are maybe on the fringe, and we'll be trying to pick some of our personal favorites and letting you in the chat, as usual, tell us when we are way off base.
Yeah, I got issues. The last episode was almost a 4-hour episode, which is why we've changed the formatting a little bit, where we're like, because we were originally going to do these last 2 shows together, and we're like, we can't do another 4-hour episode. I mean, we could, but
we definitely decided to break it up, and we decided to even add another stream like we mentioned at the beginning. So next week we're doing basketball and miscellaneous sports. The week after or soon after, we will also have let's bring some people from the chat onto the show and let's just tear it up and discuss sports in general, sports movies across the board. What makes a movie a sports movie? What actors should be known for their sports movies, whether they're the Adam Sandlers that we discussed tonight or the Kevin Costners that we discussed last time.
Or the Dennis Quaid, because he actually has the most sports movies.
Does he?
That was going to be one of my trivia one time for you.
Oh,
because I think most people would put Kevin Costner up there, but it's actually Dennis Quaid, because he has. Because we didn't even talk about The Express. He's the coach in The Express.
See, I've never seen The Express, and I couldn't find it anywhere.
Yeah. And so he's in a bunch. And then he's also in a couple movies, though, that are like, is it a sport?
Right. And it wasn't he in a bicycle racing movie?
That's why I say he's in a couple that put him up there of like,
yeah,
is it a sport?
Is over the top. Great discussion. Right. So be prepared for that. Hopefully to see you all back here next week when we go through basketball and miscellaneous sports films, because there are a ton. And I appreciate all of you hanging out. Feel free to drop us a movie that we should have mentioned, a movie that we need to rewatch. I know Brian's song is clearly on both of our lists now. And I am trying to find a copy or a way to watch The Express, because I hear very good things. I just wasn't able to find it anywhere.
And also, John and I've talked, we want to continue doing series of movies. We've got a list of things that we are percolating of like, hey, let's talk about maybe this type of category of movies or things like that. But shoot us a message on Instagram. Let us know if there's something like, hey, you guys, this would be really fun to just talk about this. Because
I know that we have ideas for some of the holidays that are coming up later in the fall, but for September, we haven't picked what we want to use as our kind of springboard to discuss in September. So if there's a genre or theme, a subgenre even of film that you want us to dive into, we're still trying to pick what we'll do in September. Obviously, with October coming, we're going to get into some nightmare horror kind of categories for October. But we're still trying to pick something that'll take us through September.
And maybe not even horror. Maybe it's just Halloween themed movies.
I think what would be fun is just breaking up. I mean, you could have ghost films, and you could have Halloween comedies, and you could have just like we did with sports, you could break it up over several.
You really could, because, are you going to put certain ones? Are you going to put, there's so many witches where it fall into the category, whereas Hocus Pocus fall into the category, which, man, I'll tell you what, though, that will be an interesting, because if it's, and I'm all game for it, but if it's like slasher horror movies and stuff, I haven't seen a lot of like the original, like that people love.
Time to start watching.
Right. Like, so like the Friday the 13th, the Jasons, I've seen parts of some of them, but there's a lot of
that
those.
was my jam when I was a kid. Like I legitimately loved 80s horror slasher stuff. So I watched a ton of it. But that stuff doesn't hold up. I think the nostalgia of it is always one thing.
Yeah.
But special effects is an area where I feel like over time really date a movie. If they're done poorly or even mediocre over time, really rob a movie. I watched The Frighteners the other night with my wife, which is a Michael J. Fox movie by Peter Jackson that my wife and I loved. I mean, we watched it a ton. We love Michael J. Fox, love Peter Jackson, and the special effects are early CGI, and they just don't hold up. The movie is still really good. We really enjoy it, but it doesn't have the same level.
And so it'll be interesting. Like I'm excited to do it just because there's going to be. So what'll have to happen with that is the couple weeks before the chat's going to have to tell me like what to watch because there's such a broad,
right?
There's such a broad category. Like, no, if you're going to go into it, go in with this because it literally, if I did reaction videos, I could do reaction videos of me watching the 1980s.
Start doing it now, and that 80s horror films.
No, because I don't think people would want to watch me do that. I know my lane. That's not my lane.
I remember Perry was like worried that when he was like, people were telling him to watch Donnie Darko, and he saw the poster, and he's like, "I don't like horror movies, man. I can't handle this." I'm like, "It's not a horror movie. It's not. It looks freaky, but it's not a horror movie."
Right. So, but yeah, that'll be interesting to see. Ooh,
some of the T2 stuff looks spot on amazing. But there are a few shots that are like, and the Matrix does not hold up. There are plenty of shots in the Matrix that are like, what happened? What happened there? That's why practical effects, I think, and what I love about Raiders of the Lost Ark is really only has a couple of like bad green screen stuff, like the Jeep going over the cliff. Like there's really only a couple of shots that are super fake in Raiders. A lot of it is like, we're going to blow this plane up. He's going to fight under the propellers. Like they're legitimately going to do these things.
And then we can talk about one of the worst prequels of Temple of Doom.
Burn. Take a shot. Best horror comedy. Yeah, so that's our plan for October. Leave us ideas for September. What you think would be fun to watch, areas that we could dive in. I'm part of me's feeling like maybe something in kids films, animation films could be a lot of fun too.
Yeah, that could. I mean, because that's the thing too is we will talk all we want about movies because we love movies, and we would probably do this stream even if like no one was watching it just so we could talk about movies. But if there's stuff that you guys are like, hey, this is something that would be really intriguing, or if it's like, man, too many people have done these types of movies, like we don't really, I think there is like we're trying to find that balance too of like, what do people want? What are topics that people want us to engage in? So let us know too.
I figured Halloween horror kind of, I mean, people are going to want to hear that kind of stuff around that October anyways, but what do you want to hear about? What categories could we dive into next? Leave some comments. We appreciate you guys hanging out. The link to Bearded Comic Bros channel is in the description. We want to get him to 300, so let's make that happen. Click the link. I think he's like 5, 6, 8 away. Let's make it happen.
So I was at 294 when we started this stream. I had some hot takes apparently because I'm at 293, so I dropped out.
Lost somebody. Somebody quit on him.
One
of you needs to take that space, click the link, and sign up to fill the empty space there. Shia as the new Indy was cool. That's a hot take.
Yeah.
He might lose some subscribers for that one. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to head out of here because it is super late, especially back East times. So thanks, Greg. This has been awesome, man.
Yep.